everyone. Welcome to the Global HR Kickoff Trends and Forecasts for 2025. We're going to get into some great conversation today about what you can expect for the coming year, some ways to help your organization stand out and be more capable, more competitive in the marketplace, and some of the things that may have happened last year that you didn't know about that are going to influence how the markets shift and change in the coming year. Our goal is for each of you to walk away from this session to be more capable, more knowledgeable, and to have some ideas you can put into practice help your company stand out and perform better in the coming year. We're so excited you're here. We have an incredible panel. My name is Ben Eubanks. I'll be moderating the session today. I'm the Chief Research Officer for Lighthouse Research and Advisory. It's my job to take complex topics and make them easy to understand for leaders like all of you. Things like what is happening with AI, what's happening with the technology marketplace, skills, and other things which are going to be key parts of the conversation today. And I really meant what I said earlier. I'm going to challenge you in the session. The panelists are going to challenge you to be more proactive, to find some of the trends that apply specifically to your company, to the workforce that you're trying to target, to the candidates that you're appealing to. And then we're going to give you some strategies on how to solve them, how to mitigate risk, how to create more compelling employer value propositions, how to connect into the things that matter most so you can create better outcomes when it comes to things like onboarding and hiring and so on. It's going to be a great conversation, and the incredible panel here with me is going to give you some things to really think through that and be more capable. I want to introduce the panelists for today. So we have Rich Wilson here with us. He's the co-founder and CEO of Gigs.ai. His time in the staffing industry was great, but it left him burnout ultimately because he felt like it was so repetitive. And so he's going to talk really heavily today about AI and some of the ways that technology can help us solve the problems around hiring the best people. Jerry is here from Multiplier. I've had the pleasure of joining Jerry on a session previously, and he's going to bring us lots of energy, lots of insights. He has so many great examples to share. And his passion is about helping companies get the most out of their people and the strengths they bring to the table and align that with the needs of the business. And last but not least, I'm so excited to have Lourdes here with us. She is the COO of cFirst, and she cares deeply, deeply about helping organizations and leaders like all of you to be confident in who you are selecting and bringing into the company to help reduce that risk and also encourage you to bring in the right people. And she's going to bring in some joy today and giving us some insights on why that's important and how to use that in our practices. As we go through today, we'll have some polls for you to chime in on. We would love for you to stay active in the chat. We'd love for you to be active in the polls, really communicate, share. We'd love for you to be an active part of this conversation, not just a spectator watching this all happen. You and your voice matter to us, and we want to hear it as part of this discussion. And in addition, there's a companion report with this session you can go and dive into, go deeper. There's speaker quotes, there's other comments, there's other insights and research as well. So we'll make sure and tag that in the chat. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and that will be coming out. You can learn more about what you can expect from that report. With that said, I'm ready to dive into this conversation. We have a great and packed agenda. I don't want to waste any more time. So we're going to start out talking about technology and HR and why that matters. First off, we're going to talk about some of the role of technology in HR and how that's affecting the workplace today. And I've said over the last few months that I believe that 2025 is one of the years that we're going to see comfort with and use of technology really overtaking some of the other skills that HR leaders need to be effective, because the tools they're using aren't just a necessary evil to getting the job done, but they're a true performance improvement tool that's helping them accomplish more as individuals and as teams and departments. So I'm excited to hear from the panel on this topic. Rich, I'm going to start with you. How have you seen AI being used in hiring and recruitment in the last year, and what could that look like in the coming year?
So I think when it comes to the hiring tools, I think it's really interesting about the PR and the hype around AI in hiring. But, AI has been in hiring for 10, maybe 15 years. It has been there, but it's not been there in the way it is now. And I think what we've seen last year was obviously the Gen AI tools being embedded in the tools that HR leaders were already using, the ATS systems, the HRIS systems, whatever system, the CRM, whatever system HR leaders are using, generative AI was brought in by nearly every single one of those solutions at one point of the process, whether that be create a CV for the candidate, create a job spec better, respond to adverts, respond to rejected adverts, make decisions on rejected adverts, there's obviously a lot of things that start to ask a lot of social bias, questions that are asked there. But I think last year was the year where the embedded part of Gen AI into the current tools really exploded. And I think this year, the new tools will then explode even further. So if you think about how much money was put into venture capital and HR tech in the last 3 years, it's been the more than ever as before. But if you think about the tools that now exist that didn't exist even last year, there's a lot of tools that are now there to do HR interviewing. So the first stage interview is done by an AI agent who will talk to that person, ask them questions, record it, and then tell the hiring leader whether they should interview them for real. Again, whether you like that or not, I have mixed feelings on that, but that now exists. The AI matching has went to another level. AI matching was always there, but that has now become automated even further. You're right through to negotiation around compensation packages has been used. The generative AI tools are now saying, hey, we have 4 people on $80,000 medium salary on this, so we're going to offer that person $80,000, and we're those decisions are these are new, and that's only going to explode. These new tools aren't going anywhere. This year is going to be the year of AI agents, and it is the candidate experience is very much going to change. Whether candidates like that is the other question, right? But I do think we're going to see a huge explosion in the AI agent side of it for sure this year.
Yes, I'm hearing a lot of that, both from the employers that are testing these out, as well as some of the solution providers out there trying to build these and put them out there and make them available to employers. Definitely, the agent piece is definitely, I think, the big theme that we're going to see in 2025 when it comes to AI and hiring. Lourdes, what about you? What are you hearing about, and what are you seeing around how AI is affecting HR more broadly?
Actually, what Rich was saying, and while he was saying this, I was processing some of, the things that I used to do when I would interview candidates or my team interviewed. I've interviewed hundreds of candidates, and I still remember, it used to be a manual process from really screening resumes and then, filling up sheets, giving feedback as to, what this candidate is good at and what, we can improve and things like that. And when I see it today, I see the whole life cycle that AI has impacted, right from just screening of the candidates to, onboarding them, the performance matrix, the entire gamut of activities that HR does, As Rich said, it's so true. There are tools and there were tools that were being used like your ATS and, but I just think AI has made it better, easier, faster, more efficient. And, things that AI has brought in, like your resume parser, your Boolean searches, which helps kind of screening candidates very, very easily. I think if you can have the right AI algorithm in place, you can also negate a lot of bias. Rich also spoke about a lot of biases that we bring in, as human beings, the number of people we've interviewed, scenarios, circumstances. A lot of times we try to fit the candidate into, a block and say, okay, will this candidate do well in our culture, in our setup, and so on. I think AI has done a brilliant job of, helping, I wouldn't say negate it, but at least reduce it to a very, very, large extent. On the employee onboarding front, I feel another thing that's happened great is, I think everybody used to get, one standard kind of onboarding process. Now with AI in place, you can really customize it, to the role, to the experience, to the way you would want to treat that employee, So I believe AI has done fantastically, made it easier to onboard, employees and make them feel more involved, feel as if it was customized for them. But I think what AI has really, really done drastically well is, it has helped reduce I wouldn't use the word reduce. I would say, manage the entire HR process well. So they have actually helped HR move from an administrative role to a more strategic role. Now HR has, better time on hand to actually look at the larger picture, to help in the organization's success and also ensuring, employee experience. So for me, I feel, AI has done a fantastic job in kind of really, making HR faster, smarter, and more employee focused.
That excites me so much because I think about when I worked as an HR leader, just like you were talking about your own experiences there. You have this picture of what great looks like in your head, and you can't ever hardly get to that because you're so busy
Exactly.
processing this, taking care of that. I've got this laundry list of things on my desk to take care of, this to-do list, and I can't ever get to those things that really do create a great onboarding experience. For example, right? Those things are personalized, they're tailored, and AI unlocking that gives me more joy in my job, and it makes it better for that candidate, that individual who's starting with us, that new hire at the same time. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry, let's hear from you. So is technology, we talked a lot about AI, but is technology impacting the kinds of soft skills that companies are looking to hire for? And if so, how is it affecting that?
Ben, thank you for that question. Before I begin my response to that, I just wanted to highlight, Rich basically said, we've been using AI in some form factor for the last 10, 15 years, right? And it's been so true. And through that entire advancement, what has stayed very relevant is the softer skills that people bring to the table. I can only say, Ben, that, I've seen life. I've been working for about 33 years. I've seen life from what used to be a 286 something, a desktop, which you would switch on, and I could go for my breakfast, and then I come back, and it will still be working, right? From there to a Mac, you open the screen, and you can actually instantly work. Technology has changed from that big floppy drive to a cloud now. All of those transitions, we were very lucky to experience. Through all of those transitions, I can say the softer skills have only become more relevant. Availability of technology, and again, when I use stories, so I can tell you, right? If you hand over a Ferrari to anyone, only the finest. Awesome. So only the finest driver will be able to extract the potential that the Ferrari has to offer.
True. Very true.
And driving is not technology. Driving is a skill that the individual has grown, right? So as more and more tools are available, I must also let you know that the post-pandemic world, we are seeing the technology adoption and creation in a lot more accelerated manner. So what I experienced maybe in the first 30 years, I am probably seeing that and more in the last 3 years.
True.
So as technology continues to advance, you will need people who bring in better, softer skills. And what are those softer skills? You will have tools that will present you analytics. Some of them will also present you insights. How do you read those insights from a screen and upsell it to your leadership? Because remember, insights on a screen are of no use unless a leader picks it up, socializes it amongst the leadership, and implements it to bring about a change in the organization. That's the use of the tool that gives you an insight, right?
Sure.
What comes into play? Your ability to influence, navigate, and socialize an idea. 2, you have some of the finest ATSs that are currently available. And I have seen people where companies have invested in the most expensive ATSs, and all that the people do is just follow a candidate path. There is hardly any use the insights that an ATS offers. That's like having a Ferrari, washing it every morning and not using it. Right? And then I have people like very close friends of mine who have subscribed to the Gen AI tools, the Chat GPTs, the Geminis of the world, right? And in that N2, a couple of months back, I also went and subscribed. And I realized the output that I got versus the output that any friends got was so different. Like they came up with some magnificent creations. And when I spoke to them, I said, how did you do that? I realized It is my ability to comprehend my thoughts. It is my ability to articulate my question. And it is my ability to communicate to the technology that will help me extract more from that innovation, that solution, that device that I have. I've realized over the last, I think, 3 years, I've been working with the remote first companies over the last 3-4 years, and I've realized that in a remote world, and again, I will refer to the remote world because I think the world is more and more moving towards working remotely. You need to communicate better and quicker because you don't have people standing in front of you for for 8 hours. You're not in office anymore. All that you get is 30 minutes in which you have to deliver your idea, you have to influence the team, you have to align them, and you have to get things done. And that can only happen when you are able to kind of use the soft skills better, faster. Similarly, your ability to adopt and your agility. You will have so many tools, but in a remote world where you have people across time zones, how quick are you able to grasp? How nimble are you? How flexible are you to kind of get through things? And finally, you get 30 minutes. When I get about 30 minutes with my founders, one of them is in Singapore. In that 30 minutes, I need to be at my sharpest best. Like my mind has to work well. I need to communicate the best. I need to have all the data points the best. And then that is where my critical thinking comes into play, my problem solving. Because if I have to get a story delivered and if I have to get some things approved from my CEO, I have only that 30 minutes. I think while technology is available, while it's evolving, it is putting so much more pressure on me and everybody else as an individual to hone the softer skills. Otherwise, you will have the finest of Ferrari. You will not be able to drive it anywhere.
I love the Ferrari metaphor there, not just because now I want a Ferrari, but because the way that I talk about that typically is if we imagine the technology changes that come through, whether mechanical automation in the last 100 years or digital automation today, when that wave passes by, it strips away the parts of work that are pretty repetitive, but it leaves behind those things that it can't automate, those things like you're talking about there, the ability to adapt, ability to communicate. In the research we do, we look at the human skills model and things like creativity, compassion, curiosity, those things that humans have as a core traits that it's really hard to program an algorithm to do those same sort of things the way that we do. So those are the things we should be emphasizing, not just being more productive, not just getting more done because that makes you more robotic and the robots are always going to be faster than us. Let's emphasize those things about us that make us better, make us different, like creativity, curiosity, and all those sorts of things. And I think that's a good segue into our conversation around skills and skills-based hiring, because I want us to give the audience some ideas on how they can look for these things, how they can look for whether it's a soft skill, it's a technical skill, or a hard skill. How do we look for those sorts of things and use those as a filter for finding the right kinds of people? I know those matter to all of us. So skills-based hiring has been this hot button issue over the last year. Again, every conversation feels like it's either AI or skills in the workplace. And so this is why we're bringing this one up, because it's going to be a bigger focus for 2025 for sure. And all of you out there listening to us need to cut through the noise. You need to find people with the right skills so they can get the job done, period, end of story. That's what you're looking for. That's why this matters. So Jerry, I'm going to come back to you since you've shared some good things that sort of teed this up. How can skills-based hiring allow companies to fill those gaps caused by the rise of technology, just like you've talked about?
Ben, thank you. I think again, I will start off with a little bit of a historical context from what I have seen organizations with. Right, organizations, I believe, have always struggled to identify the right capabilities that they need to have on board. Right, and even a leader's inclination to extract the best value for every dollar that they spend, people have gone around looking for a fish that can climb a tree and fly. Thankfully, in remote, you will have less of those pressures because one, you work across an extended time period. In office, you get things done in about 8 hours, whether we like it or not. In a remote space, there is a little bit more availability present. for people to get things done and for people to learn. So in such a situation, I think the one level that has probably benefited the most is the leadership and the managers, because they have had so much more time to think about exactly what capabilities they need onboarded. Today, technology solutions are more prominently and easily accessible and available. Like if I want to know about an ATS, I can get into Google. With about 3.5, 4 hours of research, I will know exactly what ATS will fit me, what's there in the market, and what will fit me. Similarly, for an HRIS or an HCM. However, the one place where I think the organizations have benefited the most in the remote space is the availability of soft skills. Previously, in an office-based ecosystem, your local talent market was the only talent market that was accessible. Either it was Mumbai, Maharashtra, or India at best, if you want to hire in India, right? Because people can relocate. Today, we are experiencing that, Multiplier is in that space. We are experiencing, we have 450 people in 32 countries across every time zone, except Hawaii. We have 450 people in 32 countries across every time zone. And what's that helping us with? One, it's bringing in so much more to the table. I am not limited to what India has to offer or Asia has to offer. I am now bringing in the cultural nuances, the diversity, the exposures and experiences that are available in 32 countries. So, in that sense, I think organizations now need to hire people who can communicate in a remote setting, who can collaborate in a remote setting, right? And who can innovate in a remote setting. My fear, I'm sure there is some, research that is being conducted in some place in this world. In a purely remote world, how is innovation being impacted? Will we see a shortage of people managers 8 years down the line? Will we have inspirational speakers who can speak on a public platform and inspire hordes of people? Because in remote, you are losing that touch. So organizations are now emphasizing overtly to identify these soft skills, because if you want to build an organization, build a culture around it, continue to innovate and stay ahead of the curve, the softer skills are the ones that will differentiate, not the technology. Because technology, anybody can buy. The softer skills, very few can buy. Ben, yours.
All right. So one of the things that Jerry said there, Luz, was leadership benefits from skills-based hiring by folks on the right capabilities they need. It gives them a really laser-focused perspective on things. So I'd love to hear from you. How can companies make skills-based hiring work for them in the coming year?
So while Jerry was talking about, soft skills and stuff like that, I was just, so my son's a footballer, and, he wants to be another Cristiano Ronaldo, which I'm hoping that he will be. But the truth is that, when I saw him playing as a child, he's just an adult. This year he'll be an adult. But when I used to see him playing as a child, when there wasn't so much, access to how do I really use the skills. I mean, he was talented, he was good, but I think the only mentor that he had was his father. And then, he used to follow EPLs really, really strongly. So he would keep watching Arsenal play and, Manchester play. And his favorite team is Manchester. Not a good thing to say, but it is what it is. So but it's amazing as to now, how he can use this AI. And, he has recorded his own sessions of, from gym to, his all workouts, to his football, to his juggling, and how he has started using this AI to sharpen better his skills, And when I see him do that, it amazes me, because I'm thinking that this is a boy, who is, and he's doing this for the last couple of years. And I'm thinking, a 16-year-old boy or an 18-year-old boy using this, skill-based training or the skill-based learning, to kind of improve, get better. And when I put that back into our workspace, I think companies definitely, need to go beyond degrees or, years of experience. Like I said earlier, you can't fit people in a box. I think it's very imperative that, we kind of really focus on skill based. And how we could do that is, I think the foremost thing for me would be, and if I am, kind of using this, and we are using it at one of my sister concerns, is you really need to break down the job role. What is it that you're looking at? Jerry kept saying, soft skills is imperative. Technology can be bought and things like that. And while I agree with Jerry, okay, but there are certain skills, which only certain people possess. And how do you identify those skills, or how do you know that this skill, the guy with this skill will fit the job right? So I think it's imperative that you kind of break down the job role, where you talk about, what are the technical skills, what is the core competency that is required for the role, and does this gentleman or this lady, have it? I think if you do that, you kind of already, taken the first step towards the right hiring. I think the second important thing is to use technology. While again, Jerry, I'm sorry, but personally, I feel, technology is at the core for, for a lot of roles today, and largely for the IT, piece, because that's where your massive hiring, happens. That's not been true for 2024, and I hope, things turn out in 2025. But having said that, I think, tools like HackerRank, Cogby, these are fantastic tools that are there in this in the space right now, which have kind of, they have, code challenges, they have, they have preset questions, given to these tech teams. And why just tech? I mean, today you have psychometric tests, you have behavioral tests to kind of really judge, does this person fit in? Like, I know at my workplace, when we are hiring certain leadership roles, we give them situations. We throw a situation and we tell them, okay, if, this is a situation, how would you react? And then we kind of tell them, okay, now your time's cut to half and you still have to deliver the same thing. And now what are you going to do about it? So I think it's very imperative that, we kind of use technology, we use assessments to identify, narrow down the right pool for, the right kind of role. And along with using assessments, using technology, I think what's also important is that you train the hiring managers. Somewhere, Ben, you spoke about this, and Jerry spoke about this. We're all working towards finding the right candidate, but do we have the right interviewer? Is our HR, and I feel our HR is fantastic. Our HR is equipped to handle, technical interviews, behavioral interviews, and stuff like that. But are the hiring managers also, equipped? Because your role does not get, closed basis what the HR alone has to say. There are hiring managers involved. So while we are using, a lot of technology to negate bias, to mitigate bias, to focus on, core skills and things like that, who is training our hiring managers? I mean, is there even, a separate session or a skill-based, interview training program for these people? And I was just, while this opportunity came up for me to speak, and I was kind of just doing some research of my own, I stumbled upon this, quick thing at Amazon. I'm amazed that Amazon has something called as bar raisers. So they basically, these are people who kind of sit along with, the hiring manager and the HR, and they are assessing the candidate from a non-biased angle, or, they are trying to tell them that this candidate will fit, this role because of A, B, C, D. And from the last count that I remember that Amazon had in 2019, they had about 3,600 bar raisers. And I'm talking 5 years ago, so I'm sure today there must be a lot more. So I think organizations really need to raise the bar raisers for even hiring managers, not just candidates alone. That's my take on, what organizations need to do.
So we've heard about the human side of this, heard about the soft skills piece of that. Rich, I think you've got the hardest question, right? You spent time in the staffing industry. You've seen how it's hard to screen and pick the right person. We think we've got it all right, and we find out after they're hired that maybe it's not the right one. So how do you think technology can help us support skills-based hiring processes?
Yes, I think when it comes to skill-based hiring, it's another, I hate to always be the hype killer, but it's another piece of hype that is just everywhere, right? It's like skills-based. Every organization is trying to be skills-based organization. If you ask them, what does that mean? Very few. I will give a shout out. I read a book about how Standard Chartered does it. Cool. But there's been very few organizations that have actually been able to really do it or be clear why they're doing it. But I think skills-based is going to be so important over the next, 1 to 10 years, because we are coming into an exponential skills crisis. So I think it was on Friday last week, the World Economic Forum put out the Future of Jobs report. And it's about jobs that are going to be created and displaced. There's going to be more jobs created by AI than there is replaced. I would tend to agree with that. But then if you think about the skills and look at the skills that are going to be impacted by that, it's really, really a huge swing. So out of the top 15 new roles and skills that are going to be created, 11 out of the 15 are tech. Out of the 15 that are going to be displaced, only one of them is tech, right? So there's going to be a huge rise in skills, both hard technical skills like big data, like data center, that are going to be required, and then obviously the soft skills that Jerry mentioned. So there's going to be that massive spike. So we are going into a huge skill shortage for those 11 skills, right? There's just going to be a shortage of them. So if we take a step back, and I think this is where organizations need to look at, there's technology that can do this, and look at, right, let's separate the hype of being a skills-based organization. Let's look at, and there's plenty of technology that does this. We've built technology that does this, and there's plenty of organizations that have, but how do we have a skills inventory, right? So how do we know what skills, hard and soft, do we have in our organization right now? Most organizations don't know what skills they have right now. There is technology that exists now that is pretty easy to deploy that will be able to give companies that very quickly. Ourselves, Eightfold, Tech Wolf, there's lots of different tools out there depending on the size of your organization to be able to get a really good skills inventory. Once you have that skills inventory, you can use your own generative AI tools or off-the-shelf generative AI tools to then skill map and go, okay, based on where our organization are going, what skill gaps do I then have? Then when you've got those skill gaps, you can then go, right, what are the initiatives that we then need to put in place? So one of them will be reskilling. So what skills are going to be displaced that we can then reskill? Then upskilling. What skills do we have just now that we need to improve the hard or soft skills that we already have? And then third, and I think this is actually where skills-based hiring actually comes in, right, we don't have the skills that we need. How do we hire that? And I think that is where remote hiring is huge. Open talent hiring, so short-term hires is going to be huge. I think we're going to see a huge increase in freelance hiring. And again, I come from a contingent staffing background. I'm probably biased, but I think skills-based hiring works best with short-term pieces of work where you have a very specific task and you match that skill to the task. When it's a permanent leadership role, it's a bit more emotional, right? It's a bit more soft. It's hard to do skills-based hiring really well with soft skills, but hard skills to a task, you can do it. And again, there's tools out there that will help you create that, break a job into a task, match to different talent pools, and then even help you hire and create the deliverables you need for that person to do that piece of work. So the launch in generative AI technology is there, right? There are tools already embedded in the company's ecosystems, and there's ones they can buy off the shelf that will then give them that skills inventory and the decision making. I think you said it, Liz, yourself. the data is one thing, but what you do with that data is the other, right? What do you do with the insights? But we'll then give them the advice to then create, and go back to what we said at the start of the call. You could have an AI agent for every single one that could then say, hey, we've seen that the one skill that you don't have is big data. You have no big data experts in your company. You're going to need 8 big data experts, and here's how you can find them. And even the AI agent, if it's put into your talent pool, could even say, here are the 2 people internally that could do that. Here are the 3 people from our external, and here's 2 alumni candidates that you could pull. That is where it's going. There is going to be an AI assistant, AI agent, whatever you want to call it, that is going to be there that can pull from all your data sources and can say, here's the skill you don't have, and here's who you should hire. And it's going to go that far.
That's pretty wild. When you were talking about the agents earlier, that's the first picture I get, where it's starting to give you inputs and ideas that you don't see yourself, and starting to tell you, hey, listen, this team over here or this person over here may actually be better reskilled for this other role. Let's adapt them versus trying to replace for another position. Getting all those things together. I love how the AI and the skills piece come together there.
Rich is actually scaring me with what he just said, saying that there'll come a time when they'll say, hey, you don't have this and you need this. And I'm like, oh my God, AI is already scaring us enough. And now this is only going to get, better.
Well, just to add to it, OpenAI released a new feature yesterday where you can say, hey, every day at 8 o'clock, come back to me with this, right? That's how it's going to look. It will just be a chat. It will just be an agent, which will have an API connection to whatever. Let's say you're using Workday. Let's say you're using GigDI. Let's say you're using Multiplier. It will be an API call, and then your agent will just be there on your desktop, and it'll say, "Hey, Lourdes, it's 8:30 in the morning. Good morning to you. Here is today's update on the skills that you have and don't have. And here are the actions that we think you should do today." That's what it's going to look like. I said, that's already there. That is going to, we've built one that's in production just now. I don't think we're going to go live with it yet.
Wow.
But, the technology is there. It's just about the advancement of the API calls that OpenAI or Gemini or whatever can connect to your system is went through the roof. And that is where it starts getting really powerful, slightly scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I am already.
Especially from a data security, and obviously there's a big ethical piece here as well.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of generative AI for matching. I think bias does exist in generative AI. It's not as if it's bias free. And I think you need to be very, very careful about where a good old-fashioned algorithm works better than generative AI. Generative AI doesn't solve every single problem that we have.
True.
Goodness. Rich, anything? Or sorry, Rich, you were sharing. Jerry, you're hearing them kind of go back and forth on some of these things. AI, yay. AI, nay. What are you thinking on some of the things about here?
I think every year that I have worked, people have spoken about, the technology, evolving technology, taking over lives and how people work. And at the end of that year, I have only seen life has become better. There are more number of people who have learned to use those tools.
Sure.
People have learned to extract more out of not only their professional lives, but even their personal lives, right?
Sure.
I'll just give an example, a very, very rustic, very mundane example. My daughter operates 5.5 hours later than I do, being in Edinburgh. And if it was 20 years back, I would have to stay at home at the time when she will call me to receive the phone. Right?
Yes.
Very basic example, but today
True.
I'm on my walk, focused on my physical,
goals.
fitment. Yes.
Yes.
I am yet enhancing my social inputs, like my social vitamins. I'm speaking to my mother, I'm speaking to my friends, I'm speaking to my daughter. I am not doing one versus other. So I am a very strong believer of how technology will make life better for everyone. Everyone. It is just about people having the right frame of mind and approach to life. to use technology in the right way at the right time for the right things. And when I say for the right things, I will, Rich, you spoke about technology being available and being used in our hiring processes. And I will cite this example. I was speaking to some colleagues in another company, and they use one of those assessment tools that assesses spatial thinking, logical reasoning, and analytical ability. I won't name the tool because I haven't been paid by the company to propagate that tool. And I said, how do you use it? They said, every candidate who we interview uses the test. I said, awesome, very nice. I said, what is the inference you extract? And they said, no. The founders have told that this test has to be taken by everybody coming in. And I said, don't you look at the score? Don't you look at the score? What is, the basic score that they're scoring? What percentile for sales, for finance? Aren't you even differentiating? He said, no. I said, are you spending money for that? He said, yes. Right. So when tools will be available, and I think it will completely depend on us on how to extract value. And I see that in the youngsters. Like the youngsters, I have no idea about how they get to know of the tools and applications available, how they learn to use it, how they actually use it to squeeze in so much more in their lives. Right. So that is just my view, but a very strong yes for technology.
Tremendous. Okay, so time is going so quickly today. We're covering a lot of good ground, and we are going to our last big conversation for the session today. We're going to talk about talent attraction. So we've heard about, Rich gave us a good cue there a minute ago about some of the shortages and the data on that. I actually was looking at some of that research myself yesterday on that, and a significant number of global employers, probably all of you out there listening to us right now, are expecting to see skill gaps, expecting talent shortages, expecting some sort of impact from that. And that's not even talking about some of the AI piece that's going to evolve those skills and potentially further increase that risk there. So we can't produce more people, but if we can attract and we can convert candidates better than the competition, then that's a competitive advantage for all of us. So we're going to spend some time talking about some of the things that you can do and be thinking about in the coming year to help yourself stand out in the right way when you're trying to appeal to candidates, trying to connect with them, trying to attract them to your organization. So Rich, I'm going to start with you since you gave us a good cue into that a minute ago on the data on that. What are your recommendations for how companies can attract and retain global talent in the coming year?
There's obviously mixed data per geography around how hiring is going to pan out over the next year or two. There's obviously a deflation on permanent hiring at the moment. Obviously, a lot of staffing companies are reporting between 5 to 20% reduction in fees. I don't think all of that is due to a reduction in hiring. I think this is some of the disruption within AI is actually impacting staffing firms. And then there's obviously contingent hiring, which continues to increase. And I think there are very different ways that you need to attract talent, both permanently and from a contingent perspective, but they're both just as important, but they're very, very different. I think when it comes to the permanent hiring or full-time hiring, depending what geography you're in, but, and it's something that Jerry had mentioned, remote hiring is so important, and being able to offer flexibility, being able to offer, financial and mental well-being, being able to offer ways that make people feel involved, but give them the flexibility that they need. We're seeing a return of these return to work or return to office mandates. I won't mention the companies, but there is a lot in the press around this. And I think the companies who stay strong on that and are able to be able to say, hey, look, we don't need people to report back 5 days a week or 4 days a week. These are adults. Like Spotify obviously took the opposite stance. I take the opposite stance. If people are really productive working a certain way, then let them work that way. If they are productive being in an office environment, then that's their choice, but do not mandate them.
Goodness gracious. I'm trying to make notes over here myself as we're going through this, and I'm trying to keep up. So many good things are mentioned. Again, Rich talked about this range of benefits and ways to approach this and ways to think about it. He mentioned contingent hiring as well. One of the things that I didn't key in on there at the moment was Multiplier has this AOR service that lets companies classify those workers correctly. So if you're not quite sure, should it be a contractor or not, they help you with some of those things. Lourdes, you mentioned things like predictive analytics and data. And to the data nerd in the room, that is speaking right to my heart. I love that. Great insights. Jerry, I want to come to you for this last question here. Multiplier is working with so many incredible organizations around the world that are solving big problems, doing great work. You have this unique perspective. What can you tell us about some of the benefits, the policies, the approaches these companies have taken in the last year to really attract top talent? What has been effective in helping them do that?
Visualize this. 6 years back, everybody was in office. 8 hours, 9 hours, they will be together. The entire organization experienced a certain persona of that individual, very disconnected from everything else that individual was. That individual was a very detached creature coming together in your office space, which had a very different vibe. They collaborated, they innovated, they delivered, and they celebrated. And then they went back into their ecosystems. So most of the benefits and policies were centered around that individual in office, that package of individual in office. That package of individual in office had different groups, subgroups, where he or she created an affiliation. People from the same colleges, people from the same counties or states, people speaking the same languages, people, bike riders, people who have kids of the same age group. So there were many affiliations that brought different groups together. And those different affiliations, different groups together created what was the organizational entity. So your entire benefits and your set of practices, policies were catering to that individual in office. Fast forward 5 years post-pandemic. Your talent is very hesitant to come back to work. For some reason, some leadership is still believing that they can bring people back to work. It is not a leadership decision anymore. The market has taken that decision. Like no organizational leadership should feel that bringing people back to work, to office, is in their hands. It is not. The market has actually moved on. What the organizations now need to do is, as Lourdes said, identify that individual in that individual's ecosystem and create solutions for that individual to join your journey, be a part of your journey, be himself or herself, not become one of you, and yet deliver for you. Right? We have heard very often of England playing great cricket in England because it is their hometown. Right? We have heard about Brazil playing great football at Rio because it is their hometown. So when the world knows that a team can deliver the best in their hometown, why not allow an individual to work from his home or his family? Because the individual will probably deliver the best, right? As an organization, we need to create policies or benefits that align with that. And I'll give you an example. In Multiplier, right? What we are now trying to do is, previously when everybody was working in office, the engagement was only with the employee. Now we are moving the needle, pushing the boundaries, and we are saying the spouse, the children, and the parents of the employees are also an integral part of our lives. Because that individual is spending all the time with them rather than with us. So we are trying to communicate with them. In fact, very recently we reviewed our insurances, and we are now trying to cater the insurance coverage to beyond the direct family, to parents and parents-in-laws. So they become a part of us. In our communication, our messages, it's not just about revenue. It's about wellness, not only for the individual, but also for the family. So what we are trying to do is, by design, extending our engagement to beyond that individual. And we have realized, Ben, that the moment a family builds a loyalty or an alignment with an organization, the tenure of that individual is longer. the happiness stroke engagement quotient is that much more higher, and his ability to focus on your organizational mission is that much stronger. And lastly, I think the onus is today on the organizations, right? To create platforms where talent could be easily managed. Otherwise, imagine managing people on a Google Sheet or an Excel. It was horrendous. And if you have people in more than 2 countries, multiply the complexity by 20 times, because you have tax compliance, you have HR compliance, you have payroll compliances, you have other statutory compliances. So where we come into play as a company is we provide the platform where all of these compliances are taken care of. You can only focus on bringing in the best talent. Everything else, the infrastructure is managed. The last thing I wanted to highlight, Ben, is in today's world, in a world that is driven more and more by remote engagement, it is exceptionally important for a company to communicate the purpose. The purpose it is chasing. If everybody comes to office, the free food, the color, the vibe, the energy will keep people together. In remote, it is only the purpose that will keep people together. And that's where we try to highlight, right? Employment beyond boundaries. That's our motto at Multiplier. We feel that kind of it resonates well with a whole lot of people, because a purpose helps them be on the journey to give their best and try to innovate. So, Ben, that's my view. All yours.
I've gotten several good quotes from you today, Jerry. That purpose keeps people together. I think that's a really great way for us to cruise in here towards the end. So I'm going to give each of you a quick 1-minute chance to give your big takeaway for the audience. I'll go first so you have a chance to think about yours. But I want you to give them just your quick takeaway, the thing that you want them to leave with, because you've all shared so many good things. I want you can double down on something you shared, or one last thing you haven't mentioned yet that you think is especially important to them as they're thinking about, again, the year ahead and how to be most effective. So for me, be proactive. You've heard so many good strategies, good ideas. There are so many opportunities based on the conversation today for you to step up, to lead, to deliver value to your people and to your business. Really prioritize the human skills. AI can't do that. Prioritize the needs of your candidates. It makes you stand out. Prioritize your own development by being at sessions like this one if you want to stay sharp and effective as a leader in the HR profession. So those are my quick takeaways. Lourdes, I'm going to come to you. What is your 1-minute wrap up for the audience?
I think, you all largely would be HR folks, and I would just have this one takeaway. I would say invest in great technology, ensure that you can integrate them strategically, because if you do so, I think you will be positioned well to really compete for the best candidate in this fast evolving, hunt for the right candidate. I think it's very, very important to do that. That's all that I would say.
Perfect. Invest in technology. Rich, she stole your technology one, man. I don't know what you're going to do.
I'm sorry.
I think make sure you do a skills inventory. Make sure you know what skills you have and what you don't have, and then have a very clear plan for the 3 elements that you need to have right when you know what skills you do and don't have. And I said they are upskilling, reskilling, and then contingent hiring. And then to the point, have a very clear way to hire contingent, have very clear processes in place, like you said, the multiplier processes for AOR. That's super important in the US and the UK, especially. It's important everywhere, but especially UK and the US, and have those processes in place. And that way, again, you're going to be able to access different skills, but also from looking good and having kind of psychological size at board level, any HR or TA leader which is able to say, hey, I am focusing on upskilling, reskilling, and bringing in different skills into the organization, you're going to become very, very important to that business. And there's nothing more important than an HR leader needs to be in 2025 than showing how important they are to the business.
Tremendous. I love that one. All right, Jerry, let's bring us home. What's your 1-minute takeaway for the audience here?
It's actually tough to keep me short, but then I will try. A couple of things, right, from my side. I think every year, I think what stayed very relevant is for every professional to stay hungry, stay foolish. Those are the people that end up creating something new. Those are the people that end up creating something that benefits or solves a population scale problem. So stay hungry, stay foolish. That's one. Two is, I think, forever, technology has evolved. People have been scared or skeptical, but at the end of it, people have found a way to master every innovation and extract more. So let us all learn how to use technology to advance this world and take it forward, right? And as a world, we can go forward. That's the second one. And third is, I think the world is shrinking more and more, right? It is shrinking. The availability of net, the availability of information, the availability of technologies has actually shrunk the world. We are already in a place where a team is comprised of people from at least 12 to 20 different nations. While it has happened, I think as a people, as a society, we should by design learn how to engage and create with a very global team, with a very diverse team, with a team that comes from the far-flung spaces, countries in this world. So that will be a third skill I think that we need to develop. Stay hungry, stay foolish, use technology to move forward the world. And third is learn to truly engage and extract from a global world.
Excellent. Excellent. Goodness. I've enjoyed this so much. I've gotten so many good ideas from each of you in this session. And I know the audience, all of you have as well. There's so many good takeaways from this. I've really appreciated, Rich, and your perspective on AI, the risk, the opportunity, and how we can leverage that and other things to really understand the skills of our people and remain competitive as organizations. That you talked about early on, but it stuck with me, the importance of onboarding and not taking that for granted, not leaving it to chance, but really designing an intentional experience that connects with people and makes sure that they're able to join the organization and start contributing from day one. And then Jerry, I think my big takeaway for you is Ferraris for everyone. No, seriously, treat your people with respect, listen to them, know what matters to them, and they will repay that with loyalty. I think that was one of the big takeaways for me from hearing you share today. For all of you in the audience, if you would like to share any of your takeaways, your thoughts on social media, you're welcome to do so. We'd love to hear from you. You can use the hashtag HR Trends 2025, all one word, HR Trends 2025 as a hashtag, and share that on social, and it will be tied back to this session. Thank you for participating in the polls with us today. Be sure to check out that companion report that I mentioned earlier, and you can learn more about these topics, go deeper there. The link will be shared for you. And for me as the moderator today, I just want to thank you for joining us, for staying engaged, for listening and learning, for sharpening yourself, the dedication you have to being a great HR leader in your organization. Go out there and be proactive. Let's make 2025 your best year yet.